Have you ever walk out during S3X? Why? I realized I'd left my brother who was visiting me from another city back at the club. Had to go find him. I don't care if you are blood or a friend. If I'm getting laid, I'm telling you about before I leave, and if I was your ride, I will help you figure it out, but after that deuces I'm getting it in. That's why you check up with your bro. Hey, let's figure your situation first, get you a ride. Money to get back, here's my house keys, and then I'ma hit it. Or if she's coming back to my place, we gonna get you back to your place or hotel. We ain't staying together for the night. I ain't fucking my bro literally or figuratively. How are people downvoting this, but not my other one? Do y'all really think I'm the op? I ain't the one that left my bro at the club to get it in. In uni, some of my friends were having lunch, and one of the dudes randomly blurted out, "I like to film women during S3X," without their consent. Everyone who heard him say that filed a S3 Zool complaint against him, and he was kicked out of the student housing. It was completely out of the blue too, and wasn't related to the conversation at all. I can never look at him the same after that. This reminded me there's a vid of me and my ex-boyfriend having S3X in existence. I lost a decent amount of weight since, and my hair color is different, but it's still pretty recognizable as me to anyone that knows me at KMs if it got spread around posted. My ex had it, and I know he 99% likely isn't the type of guy to show anyone or even keep it, but Reddit relationship stories have made me paranoid with shit like this, so now kinda uncomfortable with it existing. Even if he didn't show anyone, there's a chance someone could get on his Google Drive somehow and find it, etc. I kinda regret it for that reason, and wouldn't do it again with my boyfriend now in case of the odd chance we break up. Obviously not planning on it, but wasn't exactly expecting things not to work out with my ex either. I wanna make sure it's gone, but it's also awkward to go up to the ex I've hardly talked to in months and say, "Hey, do you still have the S3X tape? Can you delete that Lamau?" I don't know what to do. I'm a high school counselor. One of my students found out that her then boyfriend filmed them without her permission. She knew the phone was out, but said that she thought it was because he was on the phone with his mom while they were having S3X. The look on my face must have expressed what I was thinking in my head, because she said, "I know, red flag," before anyone asks. They did contact police, but it was in the spring close to graduation, and the boy was a senior, so I don't know what happened. I also had a similar experience. The guy took some pics, even though I was telling him, I don't wish that I even took his phone and put it away, but he still managed to take some pictures when he was behind me. I had keys from his apartment, because once he was leaving earlier in the morning to go to work, so I needed to lock the doors when I was leaving. Of course, one day, he called me saying he needs the keys, and I told him, "Okay, I'll give it to you, but you have to delete the pictures in front of my eyes. Otherwise, I keep the keys and I don't know how you gonna get to your apartment." I found old recordings on a boyfriend's now ex-computer of him recording and having Skype S3X with his ex-girlfriend, and she had no idea. It was so disgusting, and I wasn't even searching for it. I was recording audition videos for acting, so I was in the videos folder, and then immediately realized that he also was screen recording me without my permission on our previous Skypes from when we were in different towns. I literally have never had a moment of going from loving someone flawed to utter disgust that fast. I've told him to delete everything, and he said delete what, so I think he's just continuing to do it. My husband whispered it's free real estate in my ear while he came, and I just couldn't deal with him for the next 20 mins. It's not quite on the same level, but my dude and I started making Minecraft villager interrogative grunts at each other and dissolving into giggles. After he got me addicted to the game, backfired on us when I made the mistake of grunting at him when we were getting it on right as we got his pants pulled down. It took about 3 days before we got to finish because one or the other of us would start laughing again anytime we tried to rekindle the mood. I do not recommend Minecraft edging. Some things are just better left to the professionals. That post was part of what started our villager grunting in the first place. I think somebody replied to that post with a comment, something along the lines of, "What works in video games, but also in S3X, Minecraft villager grunting," and I just lost it when he sent me a link to that comment, as I'd only been playing Minecraft for about a month, and was way too obsessed with it. And yes, this is 100% the type of thing that passes for a romantic gesture in our relationship. I mean, mostly was just annoyed at what I thought he meant by it. We talked about it after I took some time away from the situation and clearly got past it, as we are still married and just had a baby girl. Also, we were pretty much done by that point in S3X anyway. My husband does a lot for me before finally being done himself, so when he is done, he is down for the count kind of thing. We just usually cuddle and stuff after, but I wasn't having it that time was all. Once during the act, I had a woman take the condom off of me. She then proceeded to put her hand inside it, stretch her fingers as much as she could, and then attempted to touch my face with it. I was just so shocked and stunned by the whole situation that I apologized and then left. Hook up through a popular gay dating app. He tried to remove the condom midway through. Nope, bye. Another one tried to be all dominant and slap me. I said no. He tried again. He got punched and I left. Seriously, consent matters. I don't kink shame, so you can ask about anything. But if I say no, it fucking means no. We are not negotiating here. Thankfully, I no longer have much to do with the gay dating scene. It's not all bad, but the hookup culture does create a certain amount of toxicity. I'm big enough and quite willing to stand up for myself, but I know others who have had pretty bad experiences. It's amazing how many men assume that because someone is gay that they are victims. There has been a very long and tough road to bring the gay community out of the shadows and the shame. Back in the day, so many men were abused and assaulted, and just had to take it because they were in the closet, or absolutely knew no one would believe them or care if they were believed. Very proud of you that you can stand up to that kind of stuff so others who might not have the strength won't have to. Not sure about other countries, but here in the s3x, it's only illegal in California. It should be illegal everywhere. Stealthing has ruined lives, unwanted pregnancy, STD transmission, major trust issues, emotional damage, etc. My best friend was diagnosed earlier this year with cervical cancer, which was caused by HPV. How'd she get HPV? From a guy stealthing. A guy she thought she could trust. She was shocked because she showed zero symptoms. And she caught it not long after she had her annual pap smear that came out looking perfectly normal. She was pretty much walking around with HPV for almost a full year completely unaware and developing cancer. Luckily, they were able to remove the parts of her cervix that were afflicted, so she's been in remission, thank God. But it's going to take her a very long time to recover mentally, emotionally from all of this. And it'll be even longer before she'll feel that she can trust anyone with her body again. Just breaks my heart because she is such an amazing person. I had it happen and have constantly regretted it. Was very drunk and having s3x when the condom slipped off because the alcohol made things a bit too soft. I tried putting it back on, but she threw it away from us before I could get to it, and then she pushed me down and held me there as she rode me. I knew I should have protested more, but I was just too drunk and couldn't lift her off me to go get the condom back on, so I just accepted things and let it go. A few months after that, and I found out I got chlamydia. I got treated, so it should be behind me now. But that whole experience is still stuck in my head years later and has had a significant impact on my dating and intimacy. I really wish I could have had the same reaction you did and constantly think back on how different I would feel towards s3x if I was safer then. I've never understood why some dudes are so vehemently opposed to condoms. Out here raw dogging strangers like STDs and child support don't exist. That's fairly rare in reality since they are the ones stuck raising the kid. I've met more than a handful of dudes with the singular goal of getting girls pregnant. I really don't get it. A couple of them actually carried paperwork with them to back up their claim of being sterile. What 18 to 24-year-old guy would even know that he is sterile, let alone carry fabricated papers to prove it? Some evolutionary desire to successfully breed? A narcissistic need to keep your genes alive? Listen, if you want to be dad, be a dad. But the idea that you want to be a hit and run sperm donor is revolting and only a hair more moral than rape. The violation is the point. I once read a forum where stellars give each other advice and share their fantasies. Yes, I reported the site. It's a punishment thing. The idea is, this disgusting slut is giving herself so willingly to me as she probably has with countless other men. She should suffer the consequences. To them, STDs and pregnancy scares are righteous punishment for female promiscuity. Some of them also smear their cum on public door handles or benches. They get off on women getting in contact with their cum without realizing it. The brain has the ability to turn pathologies and fears into fetishes, eroticizing intense emotions, encapsulating them in arousal instead of fear or anger. There are many stories on Reddit of men who either got cheated on or struggled with jealousy, developing a hot wife, cuckold fetish, and wondering what twisted irony had taken place there. It's the same thing for stealthers, just with raging hatred for their s3x partners and or disgust of their own body fluids. A literal hate boner. Favk stranger unless you've been together for years and years, it's just a stupid idea. If the thought of raising a child together is at all disturbing, it's probably best just to use a condom. Why years and years? My so hasn't used so after a couple of months of dating we got tested and said goodbye to condoms. I'm glad condoms exist, but let's be honest, s3x without them is better if you can do it safely. I wish there was a non-permanent alternative for birth control for men though. It's either condoms or snip nothing in between. The best way to prevent pregnancy is to keep semen out of the vagina. So while I think an UD is neat, I just would never raw dog it with someone I wasn't trying to get pregnant. Maybe this says more about me than it says about you, but I would never ever trust someone I met a few months ago like that. I got up and walked away once when while my fingers were deep inside her, I felt something unusual. It was an old fucking condom, and it wasn't mine. She could barely be considered my girlfriend by then, because it was only our third or fourth time. But I did think it might be going places. Not after pulling that nasty thing out. Unbelievable. I can still smell it in my memory. This actually happened to me. Hooked up with a girl and she came fast. Like within a minute. Then immediately started crying after that. Just got out of a 9-year relationship. Felt like shit for hooking up and enjoying it. I asked her that later. She said mine just felt better. Said she was shocked at how good it felt and couldn't believe it. Apparently, her ex was really bad at s3x and she didn't realize. They had been together since she was 11. Didn't know how to use it or how to get her off. Just real selfish in bed. Too pump chump and would just roll over. Had a guy bite my boob once during s3x and not in the fun s3x way. That fucking hurt. Told him not to do it again. Few minutes later, he did it again and wasn't letting go. Need him to get him to let go and left. He got mad at me for kneeing him and then yelling about how he knows what women like and I was fucking stupid. I just told him to fuck off and blocked him on everything after that. We had actually been out a few times and that was the second time having s3x. Up until then he had seemed normal. Had a partner do this once, not on the air though. She kept biting my nipple during s3x. I never expressed interest in biting, I'm not into it, and we never discussed it. Fair enough, sometimes you try things in the heat of the moment and see how it lands. She kept doing it really hard, and I'd immediately tell her to stop. It wasn't exy either, there seemed to be no intention behind it, it just felt reckless and random. She kept doing it, and I eventually had to firmly tell her to stop doing it. Never saw her again. Boundaries are fucking real. Listen to them. My ex and I kicked a girl out when she wouldn't stop aggressively biting us, especially in places you don't want to get bit. We warned her, and then just told her to get out, and basically threw her out the front door. The next day, I woke up, and remembered my parents were coming over for a ride to the airport. My girlfriend frantically applied concealer and makeup to both of our necks and ears before they arrived. I had another girl one time insist on sucking on my balls so hard to the You just reminded me of a girl I dated. She always said she used to be a cat in a past life. Horny me thought this was cool as I like cats, not s3 Zuli, just thought she and I had a connection. She would bite hard. Really fucking hard. Legitimate bleeding wounds biting hard. She said it turned her on. It was a strange turn off for me because I liked everything else about her, but the biting was too much. That reminds me of a time when I was a teen in high school. I had just discovered weed and s3x and realized it was a great combination, but for some reason when I was super baked, I would just get random twitches. I was with this girl making out about to do it, when all of a sudden my jaw twitched and I bit down on her tongue so hard I made her tongue bleed. I felt terrible and apologized. I felt terrible because she thought I did it on purpose. Needless to say, it ruined my buzz, and we did not end up doing anything. We dated after that, and she never let me forget that day. I had a similar incident. She was rude to me earlier in the week. Then when we all went for celebratory drinks later in the week, she was all of a sudden interested in me. I decided to be a dick and danced with her for a bit, but then just abruptly kept walking off. Not sure why she was still interested, but she went for a kiss a couple times, and I would just turn my head away. 2 time I did this, she decided to bite into my neck very hard. I walked away and did not grant her the joys of my loins. I dipped tobacco for the first time before going to my girlfriend's house. Stomach was feeling weird, but I thought I could power through it. About 3 minutes into the deed, I literally push her off of the bed, run to the bathroom, and start projectile vomiting into the toilet. Her mom walked in to check on me a couple minutes later, and to her shock, I was butt for SS naked with my head in the toilet. I left immediately to my friend's house down the road. Probably the most embarrassing night of my life. It's dipping tobacco, not dipped, but it's when you take a small wad of tobacco and place it between your lower lip and gum. The nicotine soaks into the skin and can be quite intense for people that aren't used to it. It also tastes absolutely foul. So if he was swallowing the spittle that builds up in your mouth, I can easily understand why he threw up. It's prepared differently than rolling tobacco and usually comes in a hockey puck-shaped metal or plastic tin. People use it in situations where smoking isn't a good idea or allowed, like in a hot air balloon or during a meeting. I think baseball players popularized it quite a bit for a while. They would dip because the dust on the field would dry out their mouths and the tobacco would make them salivate more. Hate to say it, but put that tea in wire upper lip, not lower, reduces the saliva production and requires less spitting, gutting of the juice. Dipped for almost 8 years because my work stopped me from being able to smoke. Breaks were limited. I learned this from another fella. Wasn't really feasible to bring spit bottles. Only way I could gut things was if I had a drink with me, which was rare. I think it seemed to absorb better because the upper lip was just softer tissue by comparison. Glad I quit chewing though, never enjoyed it enough to stick with it. I was mid-stroke, had a buddy call me. He was going through a real rough time. I was worried this was his reaching out moment. I made an excuse about a cramp answer in the bathroom, and he proceeded to open up to me saying he just needed to be with someone. I said I had a family emergency and headed his way. To this day, we still laugh about it. Him and the girl never talked to me again. I'm tired of the stereotype that a healthy, loving, platonic friendship between guys is automatically gay. You're allowed to love your homies. This is coming from someone that identified as a bi guy for a long time and since realized I'm non-binary, but that's beside the point. I did like men in a s3x romantic sense, but I also had a healthy relationship with my guy friends without any sort of romantic connection. I love them, and I told them that. And it wasn't weird because they understood and loved me the same way. It wasn't gay, it was simply knowing you're there for each other. We had the type of bond like the original comment said, if one of us needed support, the rest dropped everything and were there. About a year ago, my grandfather had a stroke and was hospitalized. And we knew he wasn't going to make it. My best friend was in Disney World with his girlfriend when it happened, but as soon as he heard, he got on the first flight back home and sat next to me by my granddad's hospital bed. There wasn't a single moment he wasn't by my side until he flatlined. He hadn't ever met my grandfather in the past, but he was there until the end to give me his shoulder to cry on because he knew we were close. And I was there for him when his older brother returned from deployment in a wood box carried by men in dress uniform. It's not automatically gay to have a healthy, loving relationship with the people you're close to, and to deny that from yourself and those around you is one of the most detrimental acts against true happiness. In the heat of moment, started having s3x with my ex, then I remembered why I broke up with her in the first place, and I just walked away. It was hard, but was worth it. I did the same, but I was still madly in love with her, and she was the one who dumped me. She was also the one who initiated the s3x by taking my hand and shoving it down inside her pants. Immediately after the s3x, she said, "Just so you know, this means nothing and nothing's changed." Problem was, we still lived in our shared apartment, but in separate rooms. It was 6 months of hell. Took me 10 years to get over her, and I still dream of us together. I've been single for 22 years now. Not had a relationship since. Met her a few months back for coffee. She has 2 kids and moved back to Sweden, BC. Her boyfriend cheated on her with multiple women and beat her. I'm sad to say. She was still gorgeous. At a party with a bunch of friends, all in our early 20s. Group of girls show up that were apparently friends with one of the girlfriends at the party. Having a good time talking with the cutie, things get heavy, move to bedroom, clothes come off, about to seal the deal, find out she's actually 16, clothes go back on, and I nope out of the place. I told him a condom was a must. He put it on and we got to having fun. Halfway through kept saying, "Let me take it off. Why don't you want to go raw? Are you dirty? You have something?" I was on top, so I got off, got dressed, grabbed my things and left. Blocked everywhere I could. He was pissed that I was leaving without making him finish. My ex-girlfriend was obsessed with handcuffs, and I knew something was seriously wrong when she brought 2 pairs with her one night. She was usually the one handcuffed, but she requested that I be handcuffed this time, so I agreed. She handcuffed my feet together immediately after handcuffing my hands to the bed frame, which was odd, but I went along with it. Midway through she started smacking and scratching me, but not in a s3x way, more like a vampire trying to eat its victim way, and I knew it had to stop. I was able to push her away and waddle my way into the hallway after ripping these adult toy handcuffs off me like the Hulk. Oddly enough though, we went strong for another 4 months in our relationship after that. I don't know if this counts as walking out during s3x, but when I was a teenager in a student exchange program, a close friend of mine, she is from Sweden, and I went for a bicycle ride and a swim at the lake. It was a ride we had done in the past, just 45 minutes from our school. We discovered it once in summer and made it our thing. We packed 2 sandwiches, something to drink, a blanket, and a towel. Rode there, sat and spoke about anything, and rode back, and yes, we used to swim naked, because we had the lake for ourselves, and why not? She was very quick getting in and out of the water. She would immediately wrap herself in her blanket, whilst I waited in the water. She would dry up, and then it was my turn. That particular day it was cold, freaking cold, but we went either way. I honestly don't know why we did such a stupid thing, but we got out of school, hopped on our bicycles, and off we went to the lake. We got there, stripped out, and jumped in the water. It was instant regret. It was late October in Canada. Both got out of the water shivering. She pulled out the blanket and wrapped both of us in it. I can't say how we started, but after a few minutes, we were making out in that blanket and about to do the deed. When it was about to get in, she asked if we had a condom. Did not. So I got out of the blanket and jumped back in that stupidly cold water to cool down. She laughed it off, I laughed it off, then I took about a week off school as I got massively sick. Some of you wanted to know what happened after. You can read it here, but the tweeter is, we are good friends even now. We live in polar opposite sides of the world, me in Australia, she in Sweden, each with a family of their own. Someone asked why we did such a stupid thing in October. It wasn't just during October, it started in July or August, I honestly can't remember. She explained there is thing called hardening that prevents you from getting sick when it is super cold. It obviously didn't work on that opportunity. We were meant to continue swimming as the water got colder and colder, which would make the body endure winter without issues. If someone is from Sweden, please chip in if I got this wrong.